Welcome students. Quest for knowledge is the central concern of human existence. When we answer the query, we are actually giving information to the person who is asking the question. Thus, knowledge is spread by information. In the process, information is communicated from one person to another. When the person assimilates the given information, we say that the person has acquired knowledge. Thus, knowledge, information and information communication are closely interrelated. Research and development on information and its communication has led to a new branch of study called ICT, that is Information and Communication Technology. Knowledge, information and information communication form the three main components of ICT. In ancient times, birds and swift horse riders were used to carry information. Today, we live in a technological age where we use technology for information communication. Starting from telegraphy and telephony in the 19th century, communication technology has evolved to the level of internet at present. Today, information is available at the press of a button, from news to latest songs that you can choose to see and hear sitting in your home via a service called Song Video on Demand. Today, our life is largely influenced by products and services of information. An information society offers a whole range of products and services to facilitate day-to-day living. In fact, more than ever, information is the central theme of living today, and it is in electronic form predominantly. You have electronic display boards at railway stations and airports, touch terminals at banks to tell you about your bank balance or even draw money. In a library, a computer tells about the holdings of the library, issues status of a document, etc. at the touch of a button. We see computers proliferating all over and providing information in every walk of life. For the functioning of the society, we rely heavily on information and information communication. What kind of infrastructure do we need to support this societal activity involving information as the central theme? Now let us try to find out from the expert what is information infrastructure.
Information infrastructure is the infrastructure established to handle or manage information. Management of information involves a variety of activities. First of all, the information needs to be acquired from wherever it is being generated. For example, people generate information when they speak. Information may have to be acquired from a remote place too. For example, if you want to acquire the temperature in Himalayas, you put an unattended instrument there which records the temperature and keeps transmitting this to a satellite. And from the satellite, it gets retransmitted to an earth station where we get the information about the temperature in Himalayas. So the first aspect of information management is the information acquisition. After acquiring this information, we need to transmit it to a place where it gets stored. So the second aspect is the transmission. Now, having transmitted it, we are storing that information maybe for future use or maybe for further processing. So the third component of management is storing or the storage, and the fourth component is processing or value addition. After having processed this information, you need to take it to those who need this information. That's what we call as the dissemination of information. Now, the dissemination of information has two components. One is transmission, where is the bulk transfer of information from one place to another, and the other is distribution, which is taking to the endpoints in a much smaller way. It's very similar to a power infrastructure network where we have power generation, power transmission and power distribution. Similarly, we have information generation, acquisition, storage, processing, transmission and distribution, and that is what constitutes information management. An infrastructure which is built to handle all these aspects of information management is what we call as information infrastructure. So it consists of a network of instruments for acquiring information, transmission lines for transferring information from one place to another, and processing equipments and storage equipments, and finally a distribution network for taking it to the people. And this is what we call as information infrastructure.
So, management of information involves 5 major functions: acquisition, storage, processing, transmission, and dissemination. But then, where does the information infrastructure exist, and how does one get access to it? Is it in major cities? If so, then how does one in rural areas get access to it? Or does information infrastructure extend to the entire country? Is there something called NII, that is National Information Infrastructure? It is time to turn to the expert. What is National Information Infrastructure?
When we talk of a nation, we talk of a large geographical area and also a large population. Now, if we put up the national information infrastructure, which covers this entire geographical area or large majority of the geographical area, and also gives connectivity to the large majority of the population, then we call this as the national information infrastructure. But in most nations today, the infrastructure is not truly national because it does not cover the large geographical area, nor does it provide connectivity to a large population of the people, except in some developed nations. For example, take India. We have only about 3% of the population having some access to what one might call as the information infrastructure. So the most important aspect of information infrastructure is the connectivity. How do you ensure that the large population gets access to the information infrastructure? The second aspect of information infrastructure is the capacity. Now, what do we mean by capacity? For that, to understand this, I think we must look at the information itself. So the information itself exists in different levels. For example, you can send a simple electronic mail or SMS, which calls for certain alphabet to be transmitted from one place to another. On the other hand, you can send a full video picture from one place to the other. The capacity required to send a video picture is much more than the capacity that is required to send SMS. So there are gradations of information. It is not only that the gradation of information, there is another very important aspect of information infrastructure which is different from today's communication infrastructure or telecommunication infrastructure or broadcasting infrastructure, is that the information infrastructure is interactive in nature. That is, a person who is using the information infrastructure can demand information and then actually obtain that information. That is not the case today with what is existing as broadcasting medium. Whatever you get on the TV, you just have to see that. But tomorrow, when there is an information infrastructure in place, you can actually ask for a particular picture to be shown and actually see that. It could be as simple a query as trying to find out what is a special dish in a particular hotel in your city, or it could be as difficult a query as a complete report on the failure of a recent space mission. So, but the whole thing is becoming interactive. So interactive makes the capacity requirements even more. So there are two aspects associated with national information infrastructure. One is the connectivity to reach a large population. The second is the capacity as required to be by different people. Now the capacity requirement is met by interconnecting different capacity information infrastructure segments together. For example, you may have a small capacity finally for distribution to homes, and whereas we may have very high big capacity between two major cities of the nation.
So, when the entire nation is covered by information infrastructure, we call it as the National Information Infrastructure, or NII. When the whole world is covered, we call it as the Global Information Infrastructure, or GII. NII and GII approach is designed to lay the foundation of a truly information age. The modern telecommunications using electrical signals may be said to have been ushered in by the invention of telephony in 1876. The first telephone exchange enabling communication among many persons was set up in 1879. Since then, the modern telecommunication network has been growing steadily, and we have been laying cables underground and overhead to connect more people onto the network. And today, according to one estimate, the length of cable laid for telephone connection is over 12 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Do you know how much this works out to be? 1.8 billion kilometers. Is it not surprising that even with so much of cable laid over a period of 120 years, connectivity is still a serious problem? We today provide connectivity to only about 10% of the world population using cable technology. The mobile technology has added in its first 10 years of existence about 7%, taking the total to 17% of the world population. Even today, a large number of people are not connected to this network. Clearly, we have a long way to go in terms of connectivity. And remember, the present connectivity is only for telephone communication, whereas in NII or GII, we are seeking interactive, high-quality video communication. The interactive nature of communication opens up very interesting possibilities. With information infrastructure in place, you can do many exciting things. Let me give you an example. You know the Library of Congress in the United States, which is the largest library in the world with about 100 million items in its holdings. Now, with information infrastructure in place, you can visit the library sitting at home. You can walk through the library, look at the shelves, open and browse through a book. You can feel and experience the environment of the library as if you are present in the library itself. Now, this is not the real world where you are present in the library. This is the world of virtual reality. To implement virtual reality, we would need enormous capacity on the NII or GII, say a 1,000 times more than what is offered by internet today. With all these exciting developments, it appears that the world is evolving towards what we might call as NEIS, that is, Networked Electronic Information Society. About 1.1 billion people are connected today with telephone, mobile or internet. This means only 1/6 of the world is a part of the global village. Let us see what we have in place today. There exists the familiar telephone network supporting voice communication. Internet has come up to support text communication predominantly, that is, email and document transfer. On the one hand, internet technology is being updated to provide transfer of graphics, voice and video. On the other hand, telephone network is being updated to support text transmission. SMS is an example of this, but both the networks have limitations in supporting the additional applications. We know that the quality of audio and video transmission on the internet is not yet up to the mark. We know that SMS has limited capability when compared to email on the internet. Clearly, present-day networks have serious connectivity and capacity limitations. How do we resolve the problem of connectivity and capacity?
Connectivity and capacity problems can be solved by the judicious use of technologies. We have 4 promising technologies which would help us solve this problem of both connectivity and capacity. Now, these technologies are: 1, the copper cable; two, fiber optic cable, third, the satellite technology, and fourth is the mobile technology or the short haul radio technology as we call it in technical terms. Let us take optical fiber first. Its capacity is enormous. When I say its capacity is enormous, what do I mean by this? How much of video can it carry? And perhaps it can carry the whole lot of video that you can produce from one city to another in one single strand of fiber. Another way of looking at the capacity of a fiber is that if you take all the communication satellites that exist in the world today, there are about 500 of them, let us say, and you put their capacity together, and this whole capacity of the 500 satellites can be carried by one single optical fiber. That is the power of capacity as far as optical fiber is concerned. So optical fiber provides us capacity, but does it provide us connectivity? Optical fiber connectivity means laying fiber to an endpoint, and that is very difficult. Now, laying fiber means digging roads and taking it along water pipes and other utility pipes which are underneath the ground and then reaching the endpoint. So the connectivity of the fiber is not that simple or that good, whereas the capacity is very, very good. Now then, who provides connectivity? Take an urban area, short haul radio, something like a mobile, provides you instant connectivity. Suppose you go and ask for a mobile connection today, in 2 hours you will get yourself connected onto the network. So it provides instant connectivity. But for the connectivity to be available, you need the radio network already established. You can't go into a village and ask for mobile connection unless the radio network is existing at that particular point. So radio network is a requirement for short haul radio connections. Whereas take the satellite. Satellite also provides a quick connectivity and doesn't require any pre-networking activities to take place. For example, you can go to a remote village in Bihar or let us say Orissa and establish a satellite connectivity within 3 to 4 hours time. All that you need is electrical power to be able to establish this connectivity, and you are on to the global network essentially. So the connectivity is provided by both satellites, particularly for remote areas, and short haul radio for urban areas, whereas the capacity is provided by the optical fiber. Now what does the copper do? We already have been using copper quite extensively, so the copper cables will continue to be used and provide sort of medium capacity wherever required, and wherever the copper can be routed or copper has already been routed and connection is available, they can be used for providing this connectivity to the information infrastructure. Thus, 4 technologies together will provide both connectivity and capacity. Capacity by optical fiber and copper cables to the extent possible, and connectivity by the radio network and the satellite network.
The capacity of information pipes is described in a manner similar to that of roads. The lowest capacity pipe is called information footpath, representing slow and thin traffic. The subsequent levels are called information highway, superhighway and ultra highway. We have heard of 2-lane, 4-lane and 6-lane highways. But what are these superhighways and ultra highways in information infrastructure? Is it something to do with the speed of information travel? We understand that the speed of train, car, etc. is measured in terms of kilometer per hour. How information speeds are measured?
By now we appreciate that with the information infrastructure at the national level and at the global level, the society is evolving towards a networked electronic information society. The information is being represented in the electronic form, not in paper form or in some other form. It's all going to be electronic information moving from one place to another and being read by electronic gadgets basically. So in electronics domain, The information is, the basic unit of information is what is called a bit, B-I-T, bit. So more the number of bits that we can carry through an information medium, the higher the capacity of the medium. So we have the number of bits that can be carried per second as the basic unit of speed of information, that is bits per second, or it's called BPS as the speed, basic speed of information. Now BPS is a small unit for large capacity medium like optical fibers. So we also have higher magnitude units which are kilobits per second. So it represents thousands of bits that are carried per second. And then we have megabits per second, which are millions of bits being carried per second. And then we have gigabits per second, which are billions of bits being carried per second. And then we also have terabits per second, which represent 1,000 billion number of bits being carried per second. Usually the optical fibers carry information at terabit rates. That means thousands of billions of bits per second they are capable of carrying. And the copper and some radio systems carry information at gigabits per second, and normally the satellites carry information at megabits per second, and the low capacity copper cables which are run to homes and so on carry information at kilobits per second. For example, an internet connectivity that comes home usually carries information at 64 kilobits per second. So this is how we measure the speed of information through different media.
So viewers, it is time to review what we have learned in this session. Knowledge, information and information communication are at the core of evolution of mankind. At the present time, information is in electronic form predominantly, and information communication takes place via technology-based telecommunication network. Human activities are centered around information, and the society is evolving towards a networked electronic information society, that is NEIS. In order to support information-centric activities in the society, we need information infrastructure both at the national and at the global level, that is NII and GII. In the coming days, nation building and empowering citizen would largely depend on how efficient and an effective NII a country has. Information centers and libraries would play a major role in this process. Knowledge centers would evolve and become accessible to citizens. All this sounds so exciting. But before I say bye to you, let me ask our expert the final question of the day. What is the future vision of NII?
I personally feel that the future is extremely bright. Now, consider the situation where the information infrastructure is in place both nationally and globally, and most of our activities are carried out on the network. For example, you don't have to go to office. You do what is called telecommuting. Sit at home and do your work, and visit the office occasionally if at all required. You don't have to go to colleges to learn. You could sit at home and learn, that so-called distance learning and network learning. And then you can do your trading, business and educational activities. All that can happen in on the network. For example, you can access the libraries all over the world sitting at home and without having to really physically go to the libraries. So the first effect of this is there is less travel undertaken by people. The less travel implies also less traffic on the roads of the cities. I don't know, most of you may be aware that 67% of the pollution in major cities of the world come from automobiles. So if the number of automobiles come down, the pollution will come down automatically. That means you will have a much cleaner environment to breathe, and you will have a much better environment to live in. It's not only that, people spend almost about 3 hours every day commuting, in major cities, and that good 3 hours can be now put to use for very fruitful activities like gardening or any other leisure activities like sports and so on. In addition to that, the stress of traveling is also comes down. So in general, you can expect that the people will experience less stress in a networked society. So on the whole, the network society promises to be a society where we will have much more comfortable living and happier living.
Yes, it makes great sense to have such a society. What do you say? Think about it. I'm sure all of us would look forward to the evolution of such a society. Till then, bye.